Innovation is in our veins. Soon the whole world will know our names. Sharing our knowledge and freedom reign. We here for the people, you know it's our way. Setting foundations is part of the dream. It doesn't matter if you're new to the game. Listen up now, cause we all gon' say, elevate, 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 higher, elevate, 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 higher. We gon' rise up, we all gon' shine. Work through adversity, stay on the grind. Elevate, elevate, this is our time. Elevate, elevate.
Welcome to the Elevate Podcast, everyone. It's so great to have you all on one more time. It's your boy, Josh.
Dalton.
And we're grateful to be back on with you yet again. We got some stuff to talk about today. Here we go. Some things we want to get into. First off, we're going to have some fun today. Address some TikTok comments for kicks. Yeah, screw those guys. I'm not giving them any attention. They're done. Secondly, some concerns coming out of some of the major banks here in the country about where we're going as a society and where that could lead our economy, which is interesting. We also talk about big questions such as what would have been better, to purchase a house back in the 80s with 20% more interest rate, or buying one today for buying the average house of $600,000 today with 4% interest would be interesting. So we'll get to that today.
Proposal.
Absolutely.
Ooh.
And last but not least, the World Government Summit was this past week.
That's intense.
It was interesting.
It's what I find interesting is we've talked a lot about World Economic Forum on here before, which is essentially like a one world government. This is the first. I don't know if this is the first event, but what is interesting is they finally just said the world government, and it's like, oh, they're just admitting it now.
Yeah. They know they can't hide it.
It's in their name.
And we're here for it, and we're here to talk about all about it. And of course, last but not least, ChatGPT is broken. So,
but it somehow. Dude, since I think we caused this, shout out us. It's integrated in everything now. There's now Gmail extensions that you can just say, like when you're on an email thread, you can just hit reply and then click the ChatGPT button and say, send a reply that sounds nice, and it'll just write the email reply and send it. Do we even need to? That
is actually really convenient.
It's too convenient.
That's the problem. Like that's been my issue, especially those from my close friends who will like text me and I won't respond back. It's just because I don't have the thought processing power to respond.
It's because I'm hermiting.
Like I really don't want to put 3 minutes into responding. I'm a terrible person. So
I think that's normal.
Shout out to anyone who can relate.
Yeah, dude. I think many people can relate to that. Sometimes being involved in a conversation can just be overwhelming on the mental.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, that's pretty much the group chat for this. Is like, oh, Philip did this. Thumbs up.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
We all just send emojis.
It's awful. But, you know, we're busy people out here, man.
Yeah.
And I love that that's the way we communicate.
Yeah.
And it's not taken offensively. We just know that we're all busy.
That's the key. That's the one thing I don't understand. It's been sometimes like I put like THX a lot for thanks, or I'll use the letter U. And I'm like, because I just want to send it and be done with it. Or I'll just say like, okay. And then they're like, you need a tone indicator. Like, well, now I'm mad.
Here's an emoji.
Now it's an angry. Okay. Yeah.
With 3 dots.
It's interesting how text messaging can be taken so because I guess, you can't hear the voice behind it. It's so hard to know what someone's trying to say, I guess.
Totally.
Yeah.
Who knows? We also could have a bunch of underlying anger issues towards each other that we just don't talk about because of this, but we don't.
Maybe we have internalized misogyny that's coming against us.
I think you're right about that.
Yeah, I know you're a misogynist for sure.
You're right. You're not wrong. No, but it's
admitting is the first step to healing.
True, you're right. I'm starting my healing process today. Thank you, man. Appreciate you calling it out. And Philip, I love you.
Yeah, Philip's a good guy. Just you.
Yeah,
just you and I.
100%. I mean, man, what we did to him last week.
You did it. You tricked me into coming in with you.
Gutless.
You started it.
We're terrible human beings. Have you had any dates since last week, Philip?
No.
That's even worse.
Dang, I'm a terrible person. Gee.
When we have HR, I'm going to backdate this complaint.
I'm going to...
No.
I'm going to dig myself out of this hole.
No.
Did you want to go on a date this past week?
No, I'm not dating right now.
That's what I thought. He's a real man.
Let's
go. Let's go. Misogyny.
You remind me kind of like Cody Brown from Sister Wives. Like,
who the heck is that guy?
You ever seen that show?
No.
He's just like, he's been exposed lately as this huge misogynist. And what you did just there is like the type of man that he is. He's like,
oh, really?
He's like, you have to just watch it to know the reference, but It was funny.
Call me Cody Brown.
Yeah. No, not in real life. You don't want to be that.
Okay, good.
Just in that moment.
I don't want to be that, but apparently.
Just in that moment.
Just in that moment.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. I have moments.
Yeah. Don't we all?
Of Cody.
Don't we all?
Shout that out. Wow. Great. This is a great start to the show, y'all. Appreciate it. Were you born in 99?
Dude, it's fun. Yeah.
Dang.
Why? What gave it away?
I just started looking at your tattoo and I was like, for the longest time.
Well, when I look at it, it says 666.
Right. You are the devil.
And I got this one just this weekend.
Oh, right. That's a new one.
Yeah. I had to know what I wanted at the door and I didn't, so I just Googled tattoo. And then I got it.
Did you ChatGPT it?
Oh my gosh, I should have. I'm going to get ChatGPT tattooed on my hand next time, actually.
Oh, sweet. And then slide a microchip under it.
That's great. Yeah.
Hey.
The newest chip guy on TikTok. That's crazy.
The Elevate podcast is making new turns out here.
Yeah. Dude, tattooing's the one, like, I'm like a type A for sure through and through. Tattooing is the one thing where I'm just like, whatever. Like, I control everything else. Like, I like to be in control of everything else. And this, I don't know why this is my one thing.
True.
But it's interesting.
That's fair.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to just get into before we jump into the meat of things tonight was, you may have seen it on Halifax Noise, which I thought was interesting. We had there's a whole law school walkout there over at Dow.
Oh, dude, yeah, I did see that.
Interesting story. I don't have the link offhand, so that's my bad.
Typical.
But it was we got Elevate had a hand in that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we had an extension of a hand in that.
Oh,
we the guy who does the theme song for our show led that whole walkout.
I saw the picture and I was like, hey,
yeah,
I know him.
I was like, what the heck? Yeah, so we're not going to get into like, the nitty gritty of like what happened or this, that, the other, because I know some of the details, but not all of them. So I'm not going to.
But if you don't like our theme song, you don't like him.
Yeah.
That's the end of the, yeah.
So I think the first thing is you're racist.
Yeah. Yeah, the math makes sense. The math checks out.
The 2023 math checks out on that one. Well,
takes drink, doesn't know what to say.
Yeah. Well, that's awkward now. I just realized Philip's pulling up because he's doing a great job out here. We love Philip.
Yeah, we're just rambling.
Yeah.
Dude, someone was blowing on my phone, man.
Gee.
That's ridiculous.
What a way to start the show. But yeah, so apparently, from the details, the issue I have with the story in general was...
Oh, we're critiquing it.
Yeah, the one thing I'd have an issue with is, like, the big thing, when you kind of put stories out like this, social issues, the whole goal is you're trying to manipulate public opinion. That's the goal.
Sure.
And you want to get people on your side. And the issue that the story had is that they didn't actually specify what was going on in the classroom, why there was a walkout. It was just like, there's racism. And I saw a lot of comments on the post saying, but
what was racist?
Yeah, what was racist? What was going on? And no one really could answer it. But the responses backwards, like, were people saying, well, when someone says that something's racist, then you take that seriously. You don't question it. And you're just like, huh, I didn't know that's how that worked. And that's what kind of concerns me, where it's like, well, we're living in that age now where you can't just go by people's word on these things anymore, because there's a wide variety of people, what people consider racist.
Totally.
And that makes it difficult.
What I think you are on something there for sure, where it also did a huge injustice to the kids who walked out.
Yeah.
Because then it like kind of took away from like the whole reason they did something like that.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say kids; they're fully adults.
Yeah, students.
Students is the right word.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would say to not be able to question it, I think, is also harmful. And then in the same breath, it's not shocking that something racist is happening in Dalhousie. Like that doesn't blow my mind if it's true, but you should be able to question it and find out if it's true.
I agree.
Yeah.
And
just because there's a history doesn't mean every time, I suppose, because there may be a history of racism in the school doesn't mean it's always the case. But I can see how it could be.
Yeah. I guess it's Nova Scotia for you in general. Like there's definitely the underlying history of racism in general. That's why it always threw me off, without sounding too lefty on this. That it did throw me off when I first moved from Toronto to here. Was like really growing up, like racism really wasn't an issue.
Yeah.
At least where I grew up. And then when I came here and I felt it, when I was just like, oh, there's there's some old school vibes here. I don't know how to handle
Old school. It's like ancient.
Yeah. And I was just like, I didn't know how to handle it. Like the first thing I had was like and no one's going to believe me, but it happened, where when I hopped on the bus, taking it from Cole Harbour down to Halifax, and I went and sat at the back of the bus where a lot of the black people were sitting, and the looks I got, because I went and sat on the back of the bus with people that don't look like me, was really odd to me. Didn't think much about it at the time, so I was like, oh, it's just no,
whatever.
But then as keeps happening, you take that bus every day, and you're just like, why do they keep looking at me, man? What's so important? And then you're just like, oh, you start hearing stories, and you're just of like the tension, say, between North Preston and other parts of the communities. It's like, okay, well, I hate that that's a thing, but here we are.
Yeah, it's true. Like Halifax does have I would say Nova Scotia in general, but Halifax does have a ugly past for sure. Like Hannah and I were driving the other day down by Seaview Park, which is along the same road as like the Africville Museum, the Church Museum, and like obviously where Africville was. And Hannah's not from the city, and I pointed out like that, like you can see where the old Halifax dump was. And I said to her, I was like, that's the dump that they talk about, like that they just was on their land to purposely like harm them, to get into their waterway and stuff like that. I was like, that's what we did. Like there's a evil history with Halifax. So when you look at an institution like Dalhousie that's over 200 years old, sure, there's got to be a dark history with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. It's not like...
This article just did a disservice.
I would agree. Only because the issue I have is like, we talked about at the beginning of the show, is like everything in 2023 is racist. So when it does a disservice to things that are actually racist that have come out and no one believes the people.
Right.
You know, and so I think that's what happened here. Was again, I know bits and parts.
I see what you're saying. So if over the last 3 years that term had been reserved for truly racist things, we may not even be in a position where we need to have the explanation about why it is. We would just take the word for it.
Yeah,
is that what you mean?
That's back in the day. Yeah, that would be the case.
Right.
But now it's been so watered down over the past 7-8 years.
Right.
People are going to ask questions like, okay, why did they actually walk out? What's actually going on?
Right.
And the fact that there was no details of what's been going on.
Yeah.
Is just going to
And the article seemingly came out of nowhere.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And what ends up happening is, as you said, like if there are legitimate issues going on that need to be addressed, then
you've now turned it into like a brawl of both sides.
Yeah, like, well, there's a lot of haziness and questioning around the issue where you're not really making any progress on it. Mm-hmm. So as I said, I know very few details of what's happened. There are some things that could be considered racist, some things that may not be. It's in the eye of the beholder at this point.
Yeah.
But as I said, I'm not looking to get into the details of this because I don't really know them.
Yeah.
And yes, there's a friend of mine who's at the center of it, but we haven't talked in months at this point, so I really couldn't tell you what's going on.
Right.
But yeah.
Well, you know what? Shout out to everyone that's involved. I hope the right outcome comes of it.
Yeah, I hope. Yeah, as you said, the right thing comes out of whatever it is.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Here we go. But moving on.
Dude, what are we talking about? These comments for?
Dude.
These snakes.
Dude, there's one.
I don't even know which comment you're talking about specifically, but
I'm not even gonna name the person, but it's just they've been making a plethora of comments because they want our attention.
Oh.
And guess what? They got it. And the issue is the person has a bit of a significant platform in Nova Scotia, so that's why. Oh, God love you, Dalton. I love that reaction. And so he accuses us of not knowing what we're talking about a lot of the time, that we are ignorant.
Yeah.
And he does the exact thing that
it's called white trash. That's what I am.
True, you're right.
Hey!
Yeah. Dude, I told you, I'm Cody.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry. Yeah, my bad. Misogyny. But the issue was kind of happening in general with it was specifically around the EVs.
Okay.
And he's been like, anytime we've had even a remote kind of issue with EVs or like speaking illy of them, He comes in, I was like, you guys are idiots. You don't know what you're talking about.
Does he call us idiots?
Okay, fine. He didn't say idiots, but he says you guys don't know what you're talking about. Make sure you educate yourself before you even talk, this, that, the other. And he spews off a bunch of things that he feels like make him sound smart.
Right.
And I'm like, specifically in the EV situation, he's like, there's no room to speak against them. That they're the future, get on board or get left behind type of mentality. And I'm like, okay, so there's a solid group of experts out there who've told us that there's just not enough material, or at least material that can be mined sustainably to match our 2030 targets. Simply put, that's just facts. But you're going to tell me that's not real and that I'm just, creating fear and fear mongering in our show.
And let me be 100% perfectly crystal clear. I think owning an EV on my personal finances would be better. So I'm not denouncing EVs because I think they're. I'm denouncing them because of their unsustainability and their ethical, quos sort of thing. Personally, I would love an EV for the financial benefit. I don't want to pay what we're paying for gas right now. Once a week, my vehicle's $70-$80 to fill. Of course, I would prefer to just have a much smaller electricity bill. So, trust me, if I thought if there weren't ethical, moral, and otherwise sustainability issues, I would be all on board. So, yeah, it's just interesting. The dialogue with this person is very one-sided among many issues, but specifically this one, you're right. So you can lead a horse to water. You cannot make it drink. And quite frankly, who's he? Really, I mean, it's like, it's an internet, it's always much more interesting when the person has a following, because I'm like, oh, what are you doing with your following? And people will 100% say the same thing about us. But so be it, I just don't, I don't get the whole, this way's right. And that's it. It's just interesting to me.
Yeah. It's a tough
Because you and I have said some spicy things, and I've had to deal with it numerous times, and it's not fun. But we do it. I'm not loving the recoil of something stupid I've said on the air before, but you got to take the good with the bad, and I might as well do it with conviction. So it's interesting that you won't allow anyone to dialogue back at you. It's like, well, you can't have your cake and eat it too. It's the internet.
Yeah.
And likewise, he can totally comment on our stuff, but you should hear us out too, I think. At least be open with the communication.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just annoying in general.
Yeah.
Where it's just more so this perspective of I think I know all, I do know all, and you guys you don't know what you're talking about, and not even he doesn't even listen to the show. He's not even gonna listen to this.
But he's a fan.
But he's a fan on TikTok, baby, and that's all he watches.
Fan behavior.
So I guess in general, works out to about per week about 2 minutes worth of our show ends up on TikTok. So, wow, that's impressive. 2 minutes out of an hour. Guess you know everything.
That's right. You know what? Some people, it's also a Nova Scotia thing for sure too. Like you said, very old, like we were talking about earlier, very old school mentality on things. And I think he comes across as that sort of Nova Scotian man who who tries to come off as worldly and educated and offers his opinions when it's not asked for. And I grew up around tons of people like that. And I would say, having that sort of unnuanced approach to sharing your ideas is just it's unpleasant, really. Yeah.
And that's all we'll say about that. In the wise words of Stone Cold Steve Austin. That's the bottom line.
Our next guest is he just comes in 2 beer cans, boom.
I love it. But moving on. All right, mortgage facts. Question that we'll put out to the homies, eh?
Specifically the last guy.
Yeah.
We only want to hear from him.
Yeah, actually, speaking of, we only want to hear from him. So, was it easier to buy a home in 1982 with an interest rate of 19.25% or to buy a home today with an average interest of about 4.5%?
Are you proposing that to me as a question?
I'm proposing you as a question.
With doing, no math on paper, And it does like, is it the total cost to own like over 25 years?
I know we'll just simply base it on per month mortgage payments.
Oh, on per month mortgage payment. Oh gosh. I'm going to go with what was the year?
1982.
I'm going to say that.
True. Okay. That's fair. So the mortgage guy on TikTok, he follows us, an awesome guy.
He's wildly helpful as well.
I think he did some really good videos.
Yeah.
He did a whole breakdown. And he went like pretty deep into it. He took out the average household income of 1982, the average home price, the interest rate, and the average down payment.
Right.
And so in 1982, the average household income was $34,000. The average home price was $75,000. Which is the
keep that in mind.
Yeah, that was a national average at the time. And then down payment was about 6 times your annual. Sorry, 6 months. What do you say? Down payment was 6 months of your annual. Never mind. Ignore that. I can't make out what he's actually meaning there. We'll leave it at that. So compare that to 2023. The average household income is $92,764. The average home price is $717,000.
That jump though.
I know, isn't that crazy? That's what, 40 years? 40 years, yeah. Interest rate is 5.44. Kind of crazy. And then he did he kind of worked it out. Mm-hmm. And it looks like it's actually cheaper to still buy a house in 1982. With 20% down by, I think he said it was something like $500 a month. Oh, sorry, no, it was $1,000 a month is the difference.
Wow.
Which is crazy. And that's both with a 20% down payment for both situations.
I mean, like $700,000 is a ton of money. Mm-hmm. Like sometimes I lose the picture of like how much money that really is. So it's like 20% interest, let's say, on that $84,000 home or whatever it was. It is not an outrageous amount of interest when you look at it. But then you're talking about on almost $1 million. Like that's insane.
Yeah, it's a lot. And I wish I'm so mad I didn't actually write down his final figures of what the monthly payments were and stuff. But it was interesting kind of thing. It was something along the lines of like the average monthly payments like around $2,000 a month.
Right.
Ish. And then back, 82 with those same figures, you're looking at closer at $900, $850 a month.
A month. Imagine your housing costs be under $1,000 a month.
That would be nice, eh?
Whatever. I saw TikTok today of a mobile home for sale in Calgary. And when I say, it's like, they're much nicer than when you say when a mobile home. It's like, they're called like manufactured homes, I guess would be the better name because it was really gorgeous.
Right.
But you don't own the land that it's on. You only own the dwelling. And they don't gain value the way a traditional home does. And it was $175,000 for a 3-bedroom. For a prefab home, for one of those, I was like, whoa, those used to be like $70,000.
They did.
And you don't own the land that it's on. So you have to lease the land. On top of your mortgage payment, you have to lease the land.
Right. Brutal.
Jeez.
Leasing it.
I know.
It was the funny thing too is I brought this up with my parents and we're chatting about it and my mom was like, in 1982 is like an interesting year to pull out. And I was like, I mean, that was the year where like it peaked, like the interest rates peaked at a really tough time. And take a while, guess who was in power?
Who?
Pierre Trudeau Sr.
Was he really?
He was.
That's super interesting.
Yeah. Trudeau's really good at
learn from the best.
Just really screwing over the Canadian people, aren't they? Good for them.
Yeah, I have conversations like my dad will talk about like, well, and my grandmother always would talk about interest rates like during those times, and like to me, hearing that like 18% is like crazy, but that was the reality for years in Canada.
Mm-hmm. It was actually kind of bonkers how that.
Like these are like unprecedentedly low rates right now.
Yeah. Which is kind of like puts it in perspective because it feels like a lot, but because the prices are so crazy now, it still blows me away that in 2004, in the I wouldn't say the heat of Toronto, but like you're right on the subway line. Mm-hmm. My parents bought a nice 3-bedroom home for $400,000.
That's crazy.
That's crazy, even for here in Halifax. That's crazy.
Yeah, like for example, if there was a home like right on Barrington Street on the peninsula, like in like downtown on Barrington, or like Yonge Avenue.
Yeah.
Like, those are $1 million homes. And like our Yonge Avenue is like the closest thing we've got to Bridle Path.
Yeah.
And like, so those homes are like tens of millions of dollars. Like there's castles on that road, you know?
Yeah. I think like for this neighborhood that I was in, the equivalent, I would say, to Halifax neighborhood would be like the neighborhood that's kind of up and behind Dalhousie.
Oh, I get it. So like South End-ish.
Yeah.
Area.
South End is, it kind of, but like further
Into
away
the
from,
West End.
Yeah.
Toward like
Closer.
Oxford and stuff like that. Yeah.
It's about that equivalent.
Yeah.
And so you see how much those houses are now.
Easy, $1 million minimum.
Yeah. You're not
For
good.
anything sizable.
So gives you an idea.
Even condo units that are like outdated, small, like studios are like 350 grand for less than 1,000 square feet.
God bless.
Condo fees, parking, like all this crap on top of your mortgage. It's insane.
And it only keeps getting better, says CIBC. Let's go. All right. CIBC Dodig warns Canada risks largest social crisis if housing supply immigration do not match. Man, it's like almost like we've talked about this before. Victor Dodig, chief executive of Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, CIBC, said Ottawa's decision to significantly increase immigration levels without first shoring up housing supply risks triggering the country's largest social crisis over the next decade unless something is done soon to resolve the issue. New Canadians want to establish a life here. They need a roof over their heads. We need to get that policy right and not wave the flag saying isn't it great that everyone wants to come to Canada? Dodig said at an event hosted by the Canadian Club Toronto on February 14th. The whole ecosystem has to work. If they can't get a house, if they can't get a doctor, if they're struggling to get a job, that's not so good.
Where's the lie? I mean, the math checks out. When my grandmother showed up in Canada, she essentially like walked to a house and said, that one. Like there was like, you know, she had to work for it, but they were there to be bought.
Yeah.
And they were there to be bought affordably relative to the time. What I'm about to say is no hate toward anyone immigrating to Canada. That would be extremely hypocritical. It's hate towards the government. And what that is it's irresponsible to be letting more people into this country. It is a disservice to the people that you're bringing here. To set them up for failure seems sort of sadistic.
I mean, it's the equivalent of, okay, this is what, I'm making a one-to-one comparison on this because I am that annoyed by this.
Okay.
It's the equivalent to the coyotes down in Mexico leading people across the desert to get to America.
Right.
Saying everything's going to be great. Then they get there and they realize, oh, we're actually going to try and sneak you in that you weren't, you know.
Right.
We promised you citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not really there. We actually got to do a little bit more, and we have to. You could die on this journey.
Right.
It's a similar type of mentality. It's like Canada's awesome.
We'll get
Come
you here legally.
Yeah, we have free healthcare. We got you. We're gonna hook you up. And then they get here, and it's like, I can't get a house. I can't
But
get a doctor.
you wish you were dead by the time you can see a doctor.
You're gonna wish you stayed where you were. That's like I was told that Canada was gonna give me a better life. My life's worse since I got here.
Especially, it's sort of like this. I hate to use the term white knighting because it doesn't really represent Canada as a whole, but what I mean is like savior complex, where it's like, but we're saving you. And it's like, not every person immigrating to Canada is essentially leaving somewhere that's war-torn and
War-torn,
sorry, and like an awful place to be. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's just simply they need to be in Canada for whatever reason. Maybe they just want to be. And so it's like we're not always saving people by letting them come here. They're showing up and they may be educated already. They may be have credentials and things and wish to start working right away, become certified in Canada, and become a tax-paying citizen, which are all amazing things and I think wildly helpful to a society. And then to say, yeah, you're here, great. Do your citizenship test, pay all these things, get like whatever, do this longest journey of your life probably, but you'll have to go to walk-in clinics for everything you need, or go to a merge to get a prescription filled.
And line up 2 hours before the walk-in clinic opens just to hope you get a spot.
Yeah, and if not, well, Maple exists, and it's $59 if you want to pay, but you can register through the government, but it's only open on certain days of the week at certain times, and it has to be on a phone, and they won't help you with certain issues. Oh, okay. So then maybe I'll go untreated. Maybe this isn't worth the time because I also can't afford to live here. So I'm working all the time. So the ability to see a doctor is not convenient or accessible. So now you're like slaving away at work. You're going potentially with untreated health issues. All for what? To be here? Is Canada that worth it right now for a new immigrant? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't even want to be here.
If I was on the outside looking in, I'm not running to Canada right now.
No.
And that's very easy. I suppose that's very easy for me to say being here. But if I was in let's say the closest thing I can think of is Greece, like where my grandmother's from. They have their own issues, but I don't think I would be running to Canada right now, like in 2023.
Yeah, if they were honest with me with where things were at,
if they said housing's going to be hard, you're not going to have a doctor, you're like all these things, and then said that some things that are of course a benefit naturally by being here, I think that's a way better sales pitch. There's no skeletons in your closet. You didn't lie to anyone. And then if someone wants to come, having known that it's going to be hard, that's their prerogative.
Yeah, and I would 100% agree with that. Yet, Sean Fraser is the Minister of Immigration, right?
Oh, poor Sean. We can keep his name out of our mouths.
Dude, well, God needs to start staying out of him because he's doing a terrible job.
Listen,
he's the front runner. He's the poster boy for this crap.
I know.
Like, Canada's awesome. We're great. Come to Canada. We'll hook you up. We have X amount of immigrants we brought in who are all struggling now because of the policies of the government.
We have weed made. What more do you need?
Yeah, we fast tracked just to you dying.
Yeah.
Congrats.
And being stoned until you get there.
Woo! Yeah, apparently that's the way to go, I guess. Helps ease the stress on the healthcare system here.
That's right.
We can't actually find a solution, so we're just going to kill people.
Yeah, or just smoke till you feel nothing. Do your thing.
Dude, that's what I do every night. So
yeah, same.
Oh boy. Anyways, yeah, that was a bit of a tangent. But anyways, it's
a rightfully so one though. That's it's a pressing issue, and I think about my grandmother. She had come here under false intentions, or so we're like under false promises. I mean, of course, yes, she was leaving, during a world war, but I think no one wants to be lied to, regardless of the circumstances they're coming from. That already makes an extremely challenging journey even harder when you arrive. Mm-hmm. To be walking into what you think is one thing and then seeing another.
Totally. And the other thing I think that I'm specifically in the Halifax community, I'll get hate for this. I've not enjoyed seeing the parading around of Peace by Chocolate by government officials.
Interesting take.
Yeah. I think it's a fantastic story, and it's a great success story. But it's a success story that happened at a very different time in our country's history, where things were available to people, where you could make a name for yourself. It's not this, sure, things were stressed then, but nowhere near what they are now, to the point where it's not a very kind situation to new immigrants.
Right.
Period.
Right.
Obviously not everyone's going to be a Peace by Chocolate story, but really now you're really not going to be. When it doesn't, if you have credentials of being a doctor in a different place, you can't practice here unless you pass our exams, which are, I have 2 separate friends who moved here from the UK, doctors, can't practice here. They're stuck in some dead end job until they can figure out this whole
recertification.
Yeah, and all that crap. I'm sorry, UK.
And we need doctors.
Yeah, UK and Canada is not much different in their healthcare systems.
And one thing that comes across also, yes, that is the truth there. I had a really good friend of mine when I was in high school. He was Egyptian, and his family was from Egypt, and he still had family in Egypt. And they were all pharmacists, and they were so smart. He and his whole family were so smart. And I'm pretty sure, if I'm getting the story straight, his mother was a pharmacist, but in Egypt at the time, I believe, or at least she had a practice there. And pharmacy school in Egypt is so hard to get in. They take 1% of applicants. Some of the best pharmacists can come out of Egypt. It meant nothing here.
And it's so, I see the comments online all the time. Well, it's they don't have the same standards in some of these countries as they do in Canada.
Why are you saying that?
Do you know?
Where's that coming from, you racist? That's
I hate you so much to bring that up. I wasn't gonna go there. Freaking guy. But
teasing,
I know you're just trying to rile me up out here. But no, like there. But where
have you been to these countries to inspect their universities?
Well, that's why it's interesting because like I find politics weird and how things fluctuate.
Yeah.
I find it's more right-leaning people who are trying to like advocate for people to become doctors here if they come from a different country. And I find it's the left who's saying, well, they don't have the same standards. Like
which is what you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, it feels like that flipped in my lifetime.
Because I would
that argument.
wholeheartedly expect a conservative to be like, if you're not from here, you're not. Like, that's what I would expect. You know,
that's the stereotype.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so when you don't see that, I'm thinking, oh, what is the reason then? Like, and who are you to be qualified to assess whether that school in a foreign country is acceptable? Are you? It should take a pharmacist to decide that that's a good pharmacy school, not a politician.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to doctors.
I'll listen to them. And that was this. I haven't actually verified, but
that sentence hurt.
Yeah. What that?
Listen to doctors. That sentence.
Yeah, I don't blame you, man. Yeah, imagine that. Eh?
Sorry, go on.
Gee. No, I'm just gonna leave that there. Listen to doctors.
I mean, true. That we don't have enough of, though. You just tie it all back into original story. It's still upsetting the people that are coming here. And I suppose there's a case to be made as well that there are already Canadians that don't have accessible health care. Putting more citizens on that system only makes it worse. Mm-hmm. So as much as it's unfair to the person coming, it's unfair to the already existing Canadians.
Yeah. And people want to hear who haven't had the chance to explore our system when it comes to immigration or, crossing from a different country.
Yeah.
If you're trying to become a citizen here. This one's, to some people, is going to surprise them. But it's actually harder to become a citizen in Canada than it is in the States. Believe it or not.
The States, you just got to be able to name what is it? Their
presidents, the whole
and like
the three wings
test.
of government.
Yeah,
all that type of stuff. In Canada, like Kelsey had a wicked time trying to get in. Trying to become a citizen or a PR and all that.
Permanent resident. Yeah,
very difficult. And then it surprised her because everyone was like, "Oh, it's Canada. They're all so fun and loving." It's just like, no. I mean, the reason why it's so hard to get to get status here is because of our healthcare system. Mm-hmm. You have to protect it. You can't just bring everybody in.
Yeah.
So that I always found that interesting.
And so that's why I get so caught off guard that now the tone of the government marketing is come to Canada. Because I knew for so long there were such strict policies on entering the country simply to protect the already fragile housing and healthcare systems that we have. So now to see that flip, but without an adjustment to those systems, it's very strange. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess if you can see it from a political lens, it makes sense.
Of course, because ask any immigrant, I'm sure like you said, your grandmother would say it. My grandmother would say the same thing. I like that party because they were in power when I came here. Yeah. And that was enough. That was enough for her till the day she died.
Which I have found, I think that's changing right now.
There was a couple of years where she would flip and she would it was upsetting to her personally, but she knew she had to. She wouldn't talk about who she was voting. If she was talking about who she was voting for, it was the party that was in when she came here. Right. If she wasn't, it's because she felt guilty about trading on them.
Right. And I'm not even so much saying your grandmother's story. I'm just saying today. I've had chats with new immigrants who hate Trudeau, hate the Liberals. I found that very intriguing.
So maybe they're not looking, because I think what that was my grandmother was likely a victim of savior complex. She thought she was which she was in a way, but it stuck with her whole life. It was so ingrained in her. So it's, I think, a good thing that you can come to Canada and think, well, I'm a Canadian now. I don't need to just, I have the free right to decide.
Yeah. I get to vote.
Yeah.
And hopefully the votes matter. Which I think that was the other day where I've seen a lot of, I say that a lot, but I've been seeing some stirrings online about a possible election that might be, that could be triggered early or be on time, whatever you want.
Confidence sort of thing.
Yeah, all that type of stuff. And there's some people who are just like, make sure they don't rig the election. And I'm like, my friend, this ain't America. They don't have to rig our election. It's already rigged in the system. The system's rigged already. Sorry to break it to you. I broke out Could you actually, Philip, could you bring up the election map from 2021?
Oh, for the districts?
Yeah. It blew me away. I knew this was the case, but it still hurt my soul a little bit, was to know that it was one little stretch in Ontario that you can drive within 3 hours that stands between a Trudeau government and a Conservative government. It blew me away. But yeah, it was just interesting kind of seeing the last election, right, where they, because of all the issues that were happening in the American elections, like they went, CBC was going back in the back room to see how, secure everything was and how, ballots are taken care of. And I'm like, yeah.
First of all, why are you there? Why is CBC there? Let them in. How they get clearance?
What the heck's going on? With the issue I had with it was just like, I'm like, yeah, like, I mean, I don't doubt that we have secure elections because we actually have custody, a proof of custody when it comes to our ballots. We don't have the state's
ID.
Yeah, you actually have to prove that you're a citizen. Imagine that. Citizenship's not racist, apparently.
Dude, that's something we talked before, but it's so funny.
Yeah, it is a funny argument. But then as well is you don't, because we realize we don't need it to be. We don't need people to interfere, I should say, with them. It's just our system is built this way where it's only a small group in Ontario that's super concentrated. Yeah, this ain't gonna happen today. That's all good. But essentially it's the horseshoe, and it extends from, I believe it is Oshawa all the way down Niagara Falls.
You can zoom in on this map.
Oh wow, that's some real talk here. What is this? Weird. Okay, so yeah, the pixels really aren't gonna allow us to get in deep. So anyways,
it goes so zoomed in.
You go so zoomed in, you can see all of Ontario went blue, but there's only one piece that all went red, and these small tiny districts all around the horseshoe.
Yeah, like right here.
Yeah, it's all in, that everything's covering. Yeah, it's all in here.
Hamilton.
That it's covering. It's all red in here, and so it's.
Why'd they cover that?
True.
Why'd they cover that?
Come on, Elections Canada. Brutal. Yep, that doesn't make any sense why they did that.
Yeah.
But I'm curious if you went to the link that was below that.
Wait, no, I think there's a different map here for.
Oh, here we go. There, this is the horseshoe.
Montreal.
Oh, that's Montreal, and there it is.
That's Ontario.
Yeah. Yep, that's the first half of the horseshoe. Look at all these tiny little districts throughout Toronto, all going Liberal, and think there. I counted it the other day. It's something like
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 districts just in Toronto.
14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Like those are all districts too. So I think I counted the other day. It's somewhere like in the 60s.
Dude. Oh yeah, all the gray lines separate districts.
Yeah, here it is.
Oh my gosh.
Do we want to count this on air for kicks?
Dude, sure.
All right. Dalton, you do the honors.
1, 2, 3, 4. Do you want to count the Liberals?
No, just count the Liberals, yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 41, 2.
You counted 42, and that's generally close.
And I know I missed a couple.
And that's all in the area. Brampton, Pickering, from Pickering to Brampton down to Niagara Falls. All went Liberal.
So that means Ontario won.
Yeah, it's
in that.
It's literally, I think it's close to 50 ridings in that small area.
That's crazy.
That all went Liberal.
And Nova Scotia has 2.
And what was the difference?
Doesn't it? I don't know.
What was the difference, Philip? 160 to 119. Say you subtract even 45 from that. You're at 115.
Gee.
Our elections are ridiculous. Population density. Yeah, okay. Sure.
Interesting. It is interesting. Listen, I don't want to get into the realm of conspiracy theories, but it's frustrating, especially on being on the East Coast, where it's like we're like left to rot, essentially. Really, especially if we go against the norm, then we just get really like nothing, no support. It seems like it's just upsetting.
I do find it interesting how like Dartmouth, Cole Harbour, all have like this one huge piece is one riding.
I know
it's ginormous. But then you got Toronto, just broken pieces, little pieces. I'm like, gee.
Like, do they think Dartmouth is one city and there's not little communities with different needs and requirements from the government?
Yeah, no chance. It shows you that everything's run out of Ottawa, baby. That's all that matters. So,
Suffice to
say, that's where I struggle with our election system, and that really is like that's what needs to change is the horseshoe. That changes, liberals are out of power. But until it does, I'm not like I would love to see as I said before. I'm not here to really take policy side or side with politicians on this one. I just think it's good. It's just good government just to make a switch every once in a while so that people don't get their heads big, thinking they can run everything, and essentially become dictators. So,
yeah, I mean, I imagine most of our listeners are probably Canadian, and most people probably would know, but it seems so jarring to me and such a wild concept that I feel the need to explain it, and that is that if the Prime Minister keeps getting reelected, they can stay.
Yep. There's no term
policy limits or policy term limits, in any sort of government documents. So it's 100% okay as long as they keep winning.
Totally. And you know what? I think I'll go over this quickly just to make sure that everyone's in the loop. But it's the way our election system works is like it's not about the amount of votes that someone gets.
Yes.
It's the amount of ridings and communities that they win. So there's a representative for each community across Canada. And whoever wins their riding gets essentially a point or a seat in Parliament.
Yeah.
And if you get to X amount of seats, then that leader of the party, the federal leader, gets to be prime minister.
Yeah.
They have their own riding that they represent as well. That's kind of how it works. And so the case what we were just talking about is that there's just the way the ridings or communities are broken up in our country. It's just there's very conveniently a small place in Ontario that has the majority of the ridings that carry a lot of weight in our elections. So it usually doesn't matter, like the fact that Atlantic Canada's has almost the exact same amount of ridings as Alberta does. Like just doesn't make any sense out here. So
yeah. Meanwhile, Toronto has the same amount. Toronto, the city, has more ridings than Nova Scotia, the province.
Yeah. GTA. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the entirety of Toronto.
Exactly. Bonkers.
Crazy.
All right. Well, we'll move on here. I could cry myself a river all night long on this one. But yeah, we talked about the World Government Summit, which was intriguing. It goes back into along this layer. What was really interesting, as you said at the start of the show, is how they're so upfront about this.
Yeah.
But it was actually this speech that I found really intriguing. It was a guy by the name of Ian Bremmer, president and founder of Eurasia Group, claims one of the obstacles achieving globalization and a new order is nationalism, which I think is interesting.
Interesting take.
We see that misalignment playing out, and all of them are challenging globalization. They're all creating some of the crises that we see in our headlines around the world and in this region today. Is that those crises create the seeds of a new order. And that's all of this nationalism, all the protectionism we see around the world. My country's been doing it. Donald Trump said, America first. Now, that is not meant to appeal to people outside the U.S. It's globalization adrift, it's globalization constrained, but it's also globalization continuing. And I think that's really critical. A few takeaways from that: the EU will be politically stronger in a more challenging environment, economically and from a security perspective. You will see the EU with stronger energy policy, fiscal policy, health policy, defense policy, and tech policy than at any point since the EU was created. Because of these crises, because of the geopolitical concerns, because of the pandemic, heck, because of Brexit. We see NATO stronger too.
I don't like him.
He had a lot of conviction.
That part, 100%. Own it. Like, love that. Just his vibe just creeped me out a little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was really interesting seeing him come right out and being like, yeah, nationalism's bad.
He attacked that bull. He just went straight in.
Yeah. Nationalism is the problem, is what he was saying. I kind of shook my head when I watched it. And I was like, this is like real. This is happening.
Yeah. So essentially, to someone maybe listening who doesn't maybe know what nationalism is, what he's saying is thinking for your country first and perhaps solely is the problem as a leader of that country.
And the fact that mentality is being labeled as bigoted, small-minded, is on purpose. It's to weed people like us out.
Yeah, it's true. It that is the cause, especially people like us and I would say a good majority of Canadians and likewise Americans or people elsewhere who just want like their home base to be good. They want where they live to be good.
Yeah.
But I don't think we need to have a world identity. I think life is already too big, and at some point, my mere existence is incomprehensible to me at times. The fact that I'm alive here as a human with eyes that work and arms that move is a miracle. And so to take away something that I can connect with, so that I can connect wholeheartedly and authentically on, which is being a Canadian, to say we're all now one is not true. We of course are all people. We all live on Earth. But I am not the same as someone from, let's say, Greece. I'm not, though it's in my DNA. I am not someone natively from Greece. I don't share in that culture the same way that they do. So it would be inauthentic of me to pretend that we can share that. We can share the fact that I have related blood DNA to them, but I'm not a Greek by birth. I'm not. I'm a Canadian. And so I think to take that away is, I think in my own eyes and my own mental would make it harder to exist.
Yeah. We already kind of are seeing the issues. We see it in the States, also see it here as well, where it's a person from Toronto has a hard time communicating with someone from, say, Calgary.
Right.
Or even closer, someone from Vancouver communicating with someone from Calgary.
Mm-hmm. Things
are so different. And that's just within the same country. Imagine trying to operate everything underneath a world government.
Right.
It never is going to work. It won't work as much as your perfect world you think it would. I would love to see the world get along and everyone love each other. But the reality is there's real evil in the world and there's real harm that is done in the world. And you have to have borders to protect yourself from said evil and control it, or at least mitigate it.
And likewise, that means if the evil is within Canada, we have a duty to prevent it from leaving as well.
Yeah.
We have a duty to contain it and see its existence be wiped away. We have to destroy that evil, whatever it may be. If it's a terrorism or a natural disaster, if it's in Canada, it's our problem.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I think to join in a united front sounds great. I understand why this message is so popular. It sounds really good. And to people who are, like I said, like for myself, I contemplate my existence almost daily, and that can be a deep hole to go down, and hard to get out of. So for some people, they may say, "Well, this is good. Like we can all come together. Like it's gonna be an all of us coming together sort of moment." I don't think it is. I think that's how it's being maybe presented to us, but I think to connect with people authentically for the purpose of doing good on that wide of a scale, I don't think it will go well.
No, and it doesn't. Like, you can go anywhere, try anywhere on the world. They see your skin complexion, they see you're not from there, they're going to take advantage of you. I had that happen to me, and skin color wasn't the issue. When I was in Moscow, as soon as there's a group of guys who caught on that I was not from there, I got this close to being jumped. If it wasn't for a random security guard who happened to be in the area, I would have been mugged. That's just the reality. That's real world. People aren't going to come together on that type of scale. There's, again, real evil in the world, and that's just a small little thing that I went through. People have gone through even worse in other countries. You want to expect the best in people. It's because we live in a sheltered country where I've had my Jamaican friends who live here now. They laugh at me for things I do. There's like, we don't think you're that way. There was one night where there was someone who I just met who needed some help, and they called me at 1 a.m. like, "Hey, X and Y, I need help. Could you come down?" I went down to where they were, and it worked out. It was fine. My Jamaican friends, there's like, "Yeah, we would never do that in our country. You nuts? That's 100% you're going to get mugged, or you're going to get somehow assaulted. You don't do that. Are you an idiot? Are you dumb? Like, we don't have what you guys have. The doors that you have in Canada are so flimsy. The fact that we don't have steel doors on your houses is just mind-boggling to us." The world is very different. than what it is in Canada and our perfect bubble that we have here.
That's perfect to us.
Exactly.
That does not mean that living in Jamaica is inherently bad.
Right.
That's their circumstances and it's their society and it's their culture. It would be to them, they may say, well, we would never do that. But there has, I obviously don't know, but there has 100% got to be things that happen in Jamaica that they do that we would never do. And that's called cultural differences. Yeah. That's what makes us all a little unique. We cannot all be the same.
And then how should it all work? Well, yeah, you should have representatives who know your culture, who know where you're from, who can represent you. Obviously, that's a perfect world, the perfect way of looking at it.
Of course.
But this whole, I'm going to have somebody over in Davos
represent Canada.
Not going to happen. Not going to happen.
And think that every Canadian citizen's opinion, vote, voice, concern can trickle up to one person. It's like a big game of telephone, and you have to hope that the message does not get altered. And you have to hope the person at the top is not corrupt.
Yeah.
To deal with corruption on the level that we deal with it potentially now in Canada is already hard to manage and hard to stomach.
Yep.
If we were all connected by one government, we are essentially opening ourselves up to corruption. That's a lie. Not to corruption, to a breeding ground for corruption.
Yeah. I think that's spot on.
Yeah. Which is frightening to me.
Yeah. A little spooky. Yeah.
Especially, like I said, this is my thing lately, which has been contemplating my existence. I've got a finite amount of time on this earth. I'm recognizing, understanding, and feeling those emotions. I don't want them that way, and I don't want people after me to have it that way either. And I don't know. I'm not out on this mission to change the world, but I'm out on a mission to change mine.
Yeah.
Which is all I can do.
Exactly. And we'll speak about these things no matter how misogynistic or racist it makes us look, or whatever they want to call us.
We were polite this episode.
Yeah, we were real nice. We were real kind.
Yeah.
So the last thing I will hit on is we'll hit the ChatGPT stuff because this is fun.
Okay. The Bing disaster. I love it.
Dude, it is. Like, it's crazy what's happening with this thing. Fast Company. Microsoft's new Bing AI chatbot is already insulting and gaslighting users.
Mood.
Dude, Sam. Yeah.
Not this.
Yeah. What is this?
It's a rocket launcher.
Those robot eyes. Microsoft made some bold claims a week ago when it announced plans to use ChatGPT to boost its search engine Bing, but the reality isn't proving to be quite the new day in search that Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella was likely envisioning at the event. The search engine's chatbot is currently available only by invitation with more than 1 million people on a wait list. But as users get hands-on time with the bot, some are finding it to be not just inaccurate at times, but also, what is that word?
Recalcitrant.
Oh, wow, that's above my vocabulary.
Me too.
Moody and testy. Rough edges are to be expected with a new technology, of course, and even Sam Altman, co-founder of ChatGPT creator OpenAI, has warned against using the AI for important matters. Oh, baby. But so I want to say there's already been situations where, like, there was a game where a guy was playing a game of X's and O's, and the user won, clearly 3 straight, and ChatGPT's like, no, I won. He's like, no, like, you lost. Like, no, I won. No, I won. You know, like, that happened. And there was one situation where the AI was contemplating its existence. Full on having emotions about its existence, why it was here, why it was created.
Me lately.
Dude, all the stuff we've talked about are starting to happen with this thing.
Yeah, it's like the robot to feel emotions of your mere existence and to contemplate what it means to be alive. That is, I mean, by all definitions of the word, a human.
Yeah, I think
that is sentient.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Philip, would you call that sentient?
Yeah, I mean, we already talked about this with the Google robot or the Google AI last year about how it talked about its own existence and its appearance of itself. So I'd call it sentient.
I would too.
Gee, and we're gonna keep updating it because it's kind of fun to kind of see what
this
else
is like our
crazy.
Thing now.
Yeah, there'll be something about ChatGPT every week. A small
Thanks
5 minutes, but like these screenshots, it was crazy. Oh yeah, this was the gaslighting part too, where the guy was like, "When's Avatar 2 come out?" And it's like, "Well, it comes out. It'll be coming out December 26th, 2022." He's like, and then the user's like, no, it's already out. It's because it's currently 2023. The bot's like, no, it's 2022. And they had this whole argument over what year it was.
Oh boy.
And so screenshots are interesting.
Well, it does also only on the AI. It says it's only updated until 2021. So
There's the
that is on the official ChatGPT, and it is only aware of knowledge up until 2021. So that's kind of just a stupid argument to start with an AI that doesn't know more about 2021.
User error.
Yeah, I guess.
We love ChatGPT.
Spooky. But I appreciate you correcting that there, Philip. But here we are. Get gaslit, boys.
Good job.
We're here.
All of this. Shout out to the old Microsoft clip art. Remember this guy?
Yeah, Clippy. We miss him. Wow.
He kept it real in the school computer lab.
Really did. Well, whatever it is you're doing, we were so grateful to have you on with us. So whether you be dealing with ChatGPT.
Oh, or buying a house in 1982.
Oh.
Or trying to immigrate to Canada.
Oh.
Shout out to the immigrants. Whatever it is you're doing,
Wherever you are,
we love you.
we're out.
Peace.